So I've had a number of requests to do Tinkercad tutorials lately. I thought I'd throw up a screencast and see if I can get a lot of people served at once. So once you create an account in Tinkercad and logged in, you'll get a screen that looks something like this. And we're going to create a new design so I can show you some of the things that you can do in Tinkercad. Tinkercad is definitely the easiest of the 3D design programs that I've checked out. Mostly drag and drop. There are a number of different tools you can use that are already set up. But that said, you can do a lot of really sophisticated things with it as well. So let's go over to the right and grab a box to play with. We can bring it over to the workplace wherever we want, and once we've got it there, we can just click it and drag it around to move it again. To resize this box, we can use a number of handles. Those are these white or black squares that are all around the box. If we grab one of these corners, then we can resize it in 2 different dimensions. If we want to keep the box in proportion, then we hold down the Shift key and drag it. So that's in proportion, and that's without the Shift key out of proportion. If we want to make it taller, we can grab this white box on top. This can be kind of confusing with all the other handles on there. It can be difficult to find this one. Also, there's a black triangle on the top, which is easy to grab by mistake sometimes, but that will actually move this off of the platform. And I'm going to rotate this a little bit so you can see that. You can move the vertical axis, move the whole piece using this black arrow. There are 3 more handles which are sometimes a little more difficult to see. Those are these curved handles around the corners. If you grab one of these handles, you can actually rotate, and if I move the mouse inside this little blue circle, I will rotate in chunks. If I move it outside, then I will move it in individual degrees. So depending on what you want to do, you'll want to make sure you know where your mouse cursor is. So there are 3 of these, and on this view, we can only see a couple. To see our object from another view, we'll just click somewhere in the background with the right mouse button and rotate. And now we can change our view of the whole works plane. And now you can see all 3 of these handles. Changing your view like this is one of the most critical things you can get the hang of doing. For one, it takes a little bit of getting used to navigating in 3 dimensions. But maybe the most common error I see when people bring me designs to print is they have 2 pieces that look like they're attached from one view, and when you move to another view, they're very far apart. So you want to be in the habit of getting views from all over your screen all the time. You can also zoom in on what you've created, or zoom out using the mouse button. You can also use the trackpad for all of these things. It's a little more difficult. I highly recommend a mouse, but it can be done. And if you hold down the Shift key while you right-click, then you can move the work plane around. And this is particularly handy when you're really zoomed in on something. If I'm seeing that corner and I want to come over to see the other corner, this is a lot easier than zooming out, changing your view, and then trying to zoom back in. Alright, so we've got a piece here, and if I want to add another piece to it, let's say this is a house plan and I'm going to make a roof. So I grab a roof piece. Let's resize that to something kind of similar here. Oops. There we go. And so I have these pieces together, and I want to group them together. I want to treat them as one piece from now on. So I can select both of these pieces, either by dragging a square around both of them, or I can click one piece, hold down Shift, and click another piece. Once I've got all the pieces I want to group selected, I can go up to Group in the top right corner, click it. Now they're grouped. You'll notice the color changes as well. When you group something, it will take one of those colors and make everything that color to let you know. You can change that if you want to keep the colors by clicking your color indicator here. You can change the color of everything, or if you click the checkbox for multicolor, then it will keep whatever the original colors are even after you group them. Now if you 3D print this later, this isn't going to affect the color that they print in, but it can be really handy for keeping track of what's what. There's another button here right next to where the colors are called Hole, and that's what we're going to use to subtract a shape from. So let's say I've got this house and I want to cut a door into it. So I'll bring something and a shape in and make it roughly door shaped. And if I want to remove this shape from the larger shape, then I put this wherever I want it to be. I make it a hole with this button in the top right, which will turn it kind of transparent. Now it's not actually going to cut anything yet. Before it cuts that piece out, I have to group these pieces together. Once I select everything and hit group, and now I have that piece cut out. This is a really powerful way of doing things. So for example, let's say that I have made, let's get rid of this. Let's say I'm making a little box here, and I would like to round this edge. The way I do this is I make a cutting tool. Let's get another box. Change the color to make it a little bit less confusing. And I can cut a shape out of this box that I will want this curve to be. Bear with me for just a second. It's not very difficult to do, but conceptually it's a little bit challenging sometimes. So I'm going to cut the corner that I want out of this box. I'm going to make this cylinder into a hole, group these two together. And so now I've got what I think of as a cutting tool. I've got the corner that I want in reverse, and I can move it over to here. And I'm going to cut this shape out of this box by making this whole shape that I've created into a hole and then grouping these together. That's pretty well lined up. If I were making a finished product, I might spend a little more time on it. But so you can make some really complicated shapes with just these couple tools, the simple shapes, adding and subtracting them. There are a couple other tools that Tinkercad has that are really handy, though. One is their text tool. They've got a whole series of tools over here called shape generators. Some of these are made by Tinkercad, some of these are just made by users who've coded these. But the one I use the most of all is this text tool. Once you drag that into your workspace, you can type in whatever text you want. Oops. You can mistype whatever text you would like. Change the font on it if you care to. That's the one I like. And now you've got a shape that you can manipulate just like any of the other shapes. You can make it larger and smaller. You can rotate it. You could rotate it on another axis to make a little plaque out of it. You can cut it out of things. It's a really, really handy way to work, and definitely better than any other methods on Tinkercad for making text. And there are a whole bunch of different shape generators that Tinkercad has. So here's a bent pipe. And on this bent pipe you can see a whole lot of parameters you can set. You can set the outside pipe shape, the inside hole shape, the width of the walls, and all kinds of things. It's really useful. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find just the tool you need, but there are an awful lot of tools there, so it's worth taking a look at. So let's say you've created something you're ready to print. So there are two things you need to do. One is you're going to need to give this a name so that you can find it again, and also so that you can send it to somebody and they'll know what it is. If you go up to the Design button in the top left corner, and Properties, then you can name. So now recalculate everything. It's got the name that we gave it. If you want to send it to somebody to print, you click Design and Download for 3D printing. Now the thing to remember in Tinkercad, what you're usually going to want is this first option, STL. So if you can just remember that it's the very first option, you'll probably be all right. And when you click this button, you'll get a notification that a file is downloading. It'll download straight into your Downloads folder, and then you can just take that file to whoever's got the printer. You can email it or whatever. The files are very small. Alright, so those are most of the Tinkercad basics. There's a lot more to the program, but this is enough to get you started. And I really recommend getting in and just playing. Try to find shapes that you can put together just by combining simple shapes. A snowman's good, a little toy car, those kinds of things. But spend a little bit of time playing, and I think you'll find it's a lot of fun. Thanks a lot.